Greetings from the Kensington Weekly, where we examine events related to Muslim-Western relations. This is the first week of August 2026, and let me tell you, plenty happened last week in Europe. Plenty. We're going to take a look at Spain. First, was it an invasion or an invitation? Now, I'm referring to the flood of Moroccans into Spain. Okay, you probably read about this. Well, who are they? Now, who are they really? We know they're Moroccans, of course. But I think we also know a lot more about them. Aren't they poor, near starvation orphans? Well, some are undoubtedly, but findings showed that 70% of those tested, minors, were in fact adults. The findings, as reported by the Spanish outlet El Debate, underscored a growing, in their words, farce in handling the unaccompanied minor claims across the country. Over in France, when 500 African minors invaded, 80% proved to be adults. Do you need DNA to find out an age? Sometimes you do, 15, 16, 18, you do. But other times there are clues. Some of these clues include stubble beards and receding hairlines. I think that should tell you something. All right. Well, how do you get to Spain from Morocco? It's quite far, isn't it? They swim. They swim to a nearby Spanish island. Reichman University lecturer Enrique Zimmermann explained, quote, "There are fences in certain areas, and each time young people try to jump over them, they have about 2.5 minutes. That's the amount of time that they need before the Spanish police arrive and apprehend them sometimes and send them back to Morocco sometimes. But if they make it to the refugee center, then they have made it. They are there, and they're often there to stay. They're no longer returned to Morocco. From there, within a few months, they can move on to Europe and fulfill their dream. Well, I don't begrudge people their dreams. They are poor, and they don't have much of a future in Morocco. But Europeans, native Europeans, also have dreams. So how did all this thing unfold in Spain last year? Well, the independent journalist Nick Shirley tried to find out, and at peril of his life, literally. You likely heard of Nick Shirley. He unmasked the vast Somali cheating ring in Minnesota. Do you remember the Leering Center? That's my favorite. Yeah. So anyway, now that he has publicity, maybe some notoriety in some circles, he traveled to Spain to report on the Moroccan influx. He was not given a warm reception. In fact, one knife-clutching Moroccan chased him, and another yelled, "I'm going to stab both of you." He was staring at Shirley and his photojournalist. Well, Shirley had to cut his interview awfully short, but I think we all get the message. And what about these unmanageable numbers of migrants? How did this happen? Whose fault was this? The Spanish government? The socialists in power? Well, according to the president of the International Union of Muslim Scholars, it was a Zionist plot. Why would Zionists want more Muslims in Spain? Well, they're not very clear about that, but anything can happen there. So all is not well in sunny Spain. Okay, put on a sweater and let's go to a colder climate. A large raft carrying it was really a mega dinghy of 160 illegal migrants caught fire in the middle of the English Channel. Fortunately, nobody was drowned, but the rescue required significant resources. French medics were helicoptered to rescue the boats and to treat the injured as they landed. Migrants continue to pour into Britain. And here's a tragic story, so brace yourself. This is a headline from Daniel Greenfield. Quote, "Elizabeth Jane Ross, 38, was found stuffed inside a travel bag," unquote. That's the headline. Elizabeth Jane Ross, 38, was found stuffed in that bag, and which was then dumped into an area surrounding an abandoned building. CCTV footage shows an African national carrying a large travel bag to the site, and it's seemingly very heavy. He's weighed down. The suspect used the victim's bank cards to withdraw money in Athens. Well, she regularly traveled to Greece and volunteered with One Heart. It's a charity that provides medical assistance to refugees from Afghanistan and Iran. And the Afghan was then arrested in connection with her death. By all accounts, Elizabeth was a lovely woman. People couldn't praise her enough, her warm heart. She loved Greece and visited it many times. Now she wanted to live there and set up really a new life, helping the poor refugees from North Africa, Iran, Afghanistan. And so when her loss became known, the eulogies came out in droves, referring to her as a beautiful, loving, and kind woman. R.I.P., you beautiful woman. I'll always remember you for your smile, warmth, care, and kindness you showed everybody. That's just one of the many tributes that poured into her. Well, that kindness was certainly not returned by the 26-year-old man who killed her. Now, he was arrested, and he was also charged with manslaughter, robbery, weapons offenses. So he'll spend a lot of time in prison. I think we all certainly hope so. Did he kill her for money? Yeah, it was that too. But what role did religion play? And maybe we know that because when he confessed, he said that religion was a motive, that she was a Christian. Well, last week was kind of tough in Greece. A recent arrival from Sudan, he was overcome by religious fervor. He started shouting, Allahu Akbar, at a train station. Well, the Greeks became very confused and were alarmed. They called the police, who carted the migrant to jail, though not before he kicked, hit, and spat on the police. So, Greece really is changing. It's interesting, too, that the Greece was the center, really, of Western civilization, and Britons were inspired to go to Greece to fight off the Ottoman Empire. People like Byron and Shelley went over there, and they were inspired by the West. And now Greece seems to be returning to, in some large part, the control of Islam, with a number of mosques that are being set up and that kind of bridge between any leftist government and Islam. Okay, let's now turn to an event in Germany. And this was the car ramming at a gay festival. You likely heard about it. Last Saturday, an Islamo-fascist, Abdul Balout, plowed his car into a gay pride festival in Berlin. It was the Christopher Street Day parade. A woman was killed and 20 others were injured. I have an entire podcast on this. It's coming up. But today I'd like to talk briefly about the mornings after, and by that I mean the efforts that people made to make sense out of this. And most of us would see it's completely a senseless killing. Why on earth would people do that? Many Germans were puzzled, but many were not that puzzled because this happened before in a Christmas Day celebration. Screaming Allahu Akbar, he ran into the Germans. And even more people were killed at that one. Why did they do this? was pretty clear to a lot of us. It was done for their religion, in the name of their religion. One to kill Christians, the other to kill gays. The problem is that as in Britain, complaints about insensitivity or jabs at Islam can take somebody to prison generally. So there are often vague limits on free speech, and criticizing Islam can get you into a lot of trouble. So I think that there's a general fear of addressing this issue openly and honestly. We have some of this in the United States. In Europe, it's a very different thing. Well, the Christopher Street leadership wrote this immediately after the attack. We don't want this attack to be exploited for political purposes or for people to be placed under general suspicions. Such violence is an attempt to divide our society and incite people against each other. We will not allow this. And there were others, too. A singer at a festival hoped that the perpetrator would be, in her words, a white Christian male. Another woman, this one with pink hair, said, I can say that the people who were celebrating this were all white men, young white men with crosses in their profiles. Well, we've all seen this before, yeah? Well, I haven't seen this before. I haven't seen that at all. I don't know of any Christians who kill gays because they are gay, yelling, "This is for Jesus." Have you? I don't know. When you go to church, do you talk about killing gays? Aren't many churches open to homosexuality? Many are not. But those who aren't, how many of them want any harm at all to gays? They want them to change their ways and to repent. Well, this wraps up the week for August 7th, 2006. I hope you benefited from the reading. Nothing in this reading or any other reading I give represents the position of the United States government. On behalf of Kensington Security Consulting, this is Mark Selinsky, and thanks for listening. Out here.